You don't think you'll break? Have them wheel out an American flag in front of you. Tell them to burn your own American flag. And if not, they're going to take your best friend in 30-degree weather, and they're just going to keep spraying him with cold water while he's shaking so hard it looks like he's about to pull a muscle. And you can make it all stop by just burning your flag.
So you mentioned SERE school. Did you go to a different SERE school when you got to the unit?
I did. I was lucky enough to go to 2 different SERE schools.
Lucky is
Oh
an
man,
interesting word to use for that.
what a joy! Yeah. So the SERE you go to is a Green Beret. It's part of the Q course. Every Green Beret has to go through it. Is SERE level C, and the different levels of SERE A, B, and C basically to generally, unless there's a SERE instructor out there, I'm sure there's one in the comments that'll tell me where I was wrong. Generally, this is true. The higher the level of SERE C being the highest level of SERE, allows how long you can withhold food from them, how physical you can be with them, how long you can keep them awake. So SERE C basically means there's not much they can't do to you that they don't want to. It was at this point to the Q course, like I told you, I was a little bit underwhelmed is harsh, but it didn't exactly meet my expectations. So I go to SERE school now a little bit with this mindset, and I was wrong. I do remember talking to some of my friends that were ahead of me, had just graduated SERE, and like, hey, like, are some of these stories they hear like breaking fingers and knocking you out and punching you, and like how bad can they torture you? Like, well, they're like, all that's not true. They can't break your fingers, and they can only open hand hit you. They can't punch you. And I remember going, oh really? That's what I've asked. And I'm thinking again, something didn't meet my expectations. You're gonna slap me and think I'm gonna break? So I go into SERE school, and we're finally going to Camp Slappy, which is the end of SERE school.
Camp Slappy.
And we're done evading. Everyone that's evading, whether you successfully evade or not, like you eventually get put on a truck. You don't know it, but you kind of have a sense that, like, generally speaking, SERE is only so many days long. The last 3 or 4 days, I'm going to spend in a camp. So you kind of know this time when I get on a truck that's supposed to move me from one part to the next, it's probably going to end up at SERE school and not at my next rendezvous location. So I can hear the gunfire outside the truck. I'm like, yeah, all right. I knew this was coming. They pull me out and they ask, like, hey, what's name and social security number? And sign here. Whatever they're asking me to do. And then I was basically, no, and I ain't going to give that to you. And he goes, are you sure? I'm not going to give that to you. And this 6'6" black man that was probably 230, 40 pounds, he's a large man, slaps me with an open hand that might as well have been a closed hand. And it rocked me. It rocked me. And I remember going, I underestimated that. That slap really hurt. And then he goes, you want to give me the information now? But not enough to break me. I said, no, sir. I'm not going to give you that information. And he slaps me again in the same exact spot. Here's something else as a man. You probably know this as well. You ever been slapped in the same spot twice in your face? Probably not. It's a weird thing to ever have happened to you. Maybe you've had an abusive girlfriend. That's a story for another time. I have not. The first one hurt. The second one felt worse than the first one. And by the time he hit me the third and the fourth time in my face, I said, where do you want me to sign? Where I've underestimated this whole experience? Where do you want me to sign? And I sure yourself signed. And there are other times where guys will think that, hey, you can't break me with slapping. And they're super creative, and they'll just go pick your friend, and they'll just slap on your friend and tell you, this is because of you. And they'll just keep slapping your friend. And your friend eventually is going to look up at you like, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah, you are doing this to me. and you can take a slap, all day and all night, but you're the end of the Q course. Those are all your best friends around you. They're creative. They'll find a way to break you. But more importantly, what SERE was really, really good about, SERE was amazing. SERE really, you want to find out what you're made of, what you're really made of, like, go to SERE. Like, you think you'll never break? I got slapped a couple times, and I signed a paper. You think you'll never break? It's just slaps. Have your friend get slapped 30 times in front of you and start bleeding from the mouth and be like, oh, maybe not. You don't think you'll break? Have them wheel out an American flag in front of you. Tell them to burn your own American flag. And if not, they're going to take your best friend in 30-degree weather, and they're just going to keep spraying him with cold water while he's shaking so hard it looks like he's about to pull a muscle. And you can make it all stop by just burning your flag. When you're talking about some serious mind games, they'll break you. And all for the best reasons. And all for the best reasons. I talk about, I'll talk about this later. Again, I'm a huge advocate. I talked to you about this, about reading books. Reading books and putting yourself in situations before you're in those situations. I don't care if it's self-defense. I don't care if it's a combat reconnaissance mission. I don't care if it's POW. You need to put yourself in those situations before you're in them, because you're not going to make the best decisions on a snap, on a snap decision when you're in the middle of the toughest time of your life. Part of the problem with that kind of scenario is, well, how am I supposed to imagine a situation that I've never been in? Well, that's where reading books comes in. Those guys were in those situations, and hopefully they're writing a book now to tell you what they would have done different. Or they'll tell you, what a scenario looks like in that situation through writing the book, and you actually do have enough information now to make a decision. What they're telling you is, you'll die for that flag. Sure, you'll die for that flag. Do you want to go home and see your family? Is you burning that flag under duress, being made to burn that flag, is that worth losing your life for? I got 4 kids. You got any kids? You got your mom and dad. You're on a school trip to Russia. I don't know why you would be. And you get detained, and they say, hey, we also got your parents. We're going to kill your parents unless you burn this flag. That's a crazy situation to be in. 1, it's your country. But 2, at the end of the day, it's threads. Is that worth more than your parents' lives? At the end of the day, there's no right answer to it, of sorts. What they want you to realize is, if you ever have to make this decision, at least you've thought about this decision and you knew it was worth you. What would be absolutely worse is to, 1, either scenario is horrible if you haven't thought it out. Burn the flag out of weakness, wish you never would have burned the flag and have to live with it the rest of your life. Or 2, just as bad, say you'll die for that flag, die for it, and then, as if you could, maybe right before you die, go, you know what, maybe this wasn't worth it. I sure wish I'd have seen my kids one more time. This wasn't worth it. It was a great eye-opener into what are you really putting on the line here. And they'll tell you, at the end of the day, it's your decision. What they really want you to consider and think about is, this flag that we'll die for, we'll die for we'll die for the idea of this flag. We'll die for that flag on your shoulder. If you're in a prisoner of war camp, you survive to go home. And that flag you burned under duress that they're going to broadcast to the world, they're going to forgive you for it. You were made to do that. No one's going to think you hate your country now. Like, and I agree with that. I hope, that being said, I hope this decision, I'm so glad that's a decision I never had to make. But SERE School was legit. I really loved it. It really showed you who you were as a person, and was really eye-opening into some of the horrors of war and some of the decisions like you may have to make. And I think part of that training and part of that I'm not saying special operations guys don't have PTSD, but such a powerful tool in preventing PTSD is telling you, hey, something bad may happen to you, and you might want to go ahead and deal with it now. Because if you don't want to imagine the fact, deal with the fact that you have a dangerous job and that bad things are going to happen, when those bad things happen, it kind of breaks the mold of your mind. It makes your mind go, I never imagined I'd ever see this. And it does. It breaks your mind. Through the Q course and through SERE, through the Q course, the whole time when you're, in SUT and you're carrying a fake casualty of your teammate and trying to run to a helicopter that's actually sitting right there, and instructor's yelling at you, get him to the helicopter, get him to the helicopter. You don't get him to the helicopter, he's going to die. Get him in a helicopter. And then, of course, it's training, so the helicopter takes off. Even though you made it there in time, time magically got faster. Helicopter takes off right in front of you, and your instructor says you were too slow. Now he's dead, and you're going to carry him all the way back to base. And this is what happens when you don't meet the standard of combat. People die. And let me tell you, when I carried Chris Robinson's body to a helicopter, it didn't break my mind. I didn't go, I never thought I'd carry a friend's dead body. I thought, this is exactly what they told me was going to happen. Yeah. This is what I thought it'd feel like. It's what they told me was going to happen. So going through that type of training is important to not just toughen the body and to learn experience, but to toughen the mind as well, to be prepared. Again, little did what we know was about to be the most extensive period of combat America's ever seen.
If you like this clip and you want to watch another, click here. And if you want to watch the full interview, click here.